Hey everyone, it's Harms from Storybooks, and I am here today to talk to you about my reflections after buying very few books for 3 years. So let's talk about the struggles, trials, tribulations, and joys of not buying books. When I moved to Canada 3 or 4 years ago, I was unable to bring my books. They were really too heavy to bring in a suitcase with me, and my mom was moving, so I came to Canada with an e-reader, and one book my friend gifted to me, it is Grit, The Power and Passion of Perseverance by Angela Duckworth. And despite the fact that I love the title, I love how evocative it is, and the fact that I've had it for 3 years, I haven't read it yet. I missed my books a lot, and I mean a lot. There was a genuine mourning period in my life where I grieved not seeing them on the shelf every day. But at the same time, books were luxury items, and I couldn't really afford to buy more. Plus, I had a ton on my e-reader. I had some very generous friends who lent me an entire shelf's worth of their books so that I had something to read. Thank you, friends. I appreciate you very much, and those are some of my most cherished memories. I also became a library power user. I went to my library once a week to pick up books, and if I found out there was a new release that I was interested in, I put it on hold in my library so I could read it in about 3 or 4 months after it came out. Initially, this felt pretty punishing, but after a while I grew accustomed to it, and now I read a lot of reviews after a book comes out so I can decide if I still want that book on my hold list at all. I had to be rigorous and not purchase books at first. I was an immigrant in a new country, luckily with a lot of friends, but for 3 or 4 months I was unemployed and bored at home, waiting for my work permit to come in. I wanted nothing more than to escape the grip of immigration limbo by reading and by escaping into books. Waiting a few months for a book to come into the library felt like a long time, but I just got used to it. I found after months of doing this that I didn't want to buy the book, I just wanted to read it. I know that in my particular case, I'm very lucky. My library has a fairly broad selection of books and regularly tries to purchase new releases. I also have an interlibrary loan system that I can use if need be. I'm sure in smaller, more rural areas, access to books you want can be difficult, time-consuming, and even expensive, with some libraries requiring a cost to put items on hold. My old library in Australia required an 80-cent hold fee for each item, and then a fee of up to 20 cents per day, up to 1 or 2 weeks on hold. Without access to a car very often, and on a university student's budget, forking out $1 each time I wanted to put a book on hold felt contrary to my want to save money. I also use a particular Chrome extension called Libraries. If I look the book up on Book Depository, Amazon, or Goodreads, it lets me know if there's a copy in my library. This little extension has saved me so much time, effort, and really helps me use my library with barely any effort at all. I am now, or at least before the pandemic, I was in a position where I could buy any book I wanted. However, after 3 years, I still consider books to be luxury items. So what do my shelves look like? Right now, I've read about 25 of my books and have about 35 unread books, give or take, not including ebooks. After so rigorously restricting my book buying habits, my shelves are now one of my favorite achievements. They're full of books I love or hope to love. If I read and fall in love with a book, I often add it to my Christmas list and hope someone will oblige. Or occasionally, I will purchase a favorite from an independent bookshop or purchase it from a secondhand bookshop. I like purchasing secondhand books a lot and often think they'll take up space on my shelves for as long as they need to, then I can move them on and donate them. I tend to purge my bookshelves a lot and often give away books that I don't enjoy or am just no longer attached to. There are a few books on these shelves that even though I bought them at a library book sale and was very excited to own, I no longer need them anymore. They can go back to someone who would love them even more. I am also fortunate enough to use Script, which allows me access to a lot of new releases on audiobook that I enjoy without having to physically purchase them. So I guess in a way I am still purchasing books. A few things really are challenging my low or no buy. I have an Instagram where I post photos of books that I'm reading, book reviews, or just things that I'm excited about. It can be really intimidating to be in that space with all of these huge, attractive hardbacks and piles of books and not feel compelled to buy more books. This really isn't a dig at anyone in particular, but I think Instagram makes people want to present their best selves, so that leads to me coveting a lot of people's pretty bookish piles. The other thing that's challenging is my 20th Century Queer project. This is a project where I read 100 books by queer or trans authors published in the 20th century, A lot of these books are hard to source despite being called infamous classics. I spend a lot of my time finding these books through the library, through interlibrary loans, online as ebooks. If I then can't find them anywhere where I can borrow them, I then have to look at purchasing them. Some of these books are considered rare and are frankly out of my budget, even if I could afford them. It's tough because I do want to read these books. I feel conflicted about buying them though. Many of these books have very sad endings, which is probably my least favorite bookish trope, as many of these books are the first of their kind while being in a world of their own. Sometimes they do lack the craft of a modern queer novel. Do I want to pay $200 for a dry, sad novel about a cis white gay man in the 20th century? Not particularly, but how am I supposed to finish this project if I don't? Scribd has actually been fairly indispensable in this regard, as it has a lot of the ebooks that my Kindle does not have access to that are in the public domain, or access to books that I would otherwise not have. I'm also looking into university libraries, queer libraries, archives, and other resources, but this takes a lot of effort. It's a passion project, and I knew that going in, but I wish I had the resources to find and purchase every book on my 20th century list. If you're curious about this project, I'll leave a playlist down below that features all the videos I've made so far, as well as a list of the books themselves if you're curious. Now that I am completely off track, I'd like to say that I've loved not buying books, though I'm sure my wife would disagree, because if anyone in the house is buying books, it's me. Having a bookshelf complete with all my favorites and books I hope I'll love and that I can read soon if I want is a real pleasure. It took a lot of patience, practice, and tweaking until I found a system of borrowing books that worked for me, but I'm happy with my shelves and I'm happy with how few I have, despite what misgivings Instagram might instill in me. Are you on a low buy? Are you just trying to read your own books? Are you hauling a lot of books in quarantine? Let's talk down in the comments below.